Alright, so I'm going to start this vlog by saying, first and foremost, hello, Grizzly Squad and Brave Squad. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to share the experience of my son Ezekiel at 18 months, discussing UMC Hospital. First and foremost, I took him there because he had a 101.4 fever. And at that point is when you begin to be compromised. We went in. By the time I got there, his fever was 101.7, which was very serious. And in the end of everything, they immediately brought us to the back. They immediately brought him in for a x-ray. And upon arriving to the room, my daughters and I saw every bit of everything that they were going to do to my son. And we got very racist, rude nurses. One of the nurses, well, the one that most traumatized my son was Maria. And I believe she's still working there today.
Things are better.
And basically, she spun my son. Keep in mind at this time, Ezekiel was only 18 months. 18 months, and she very maliciously spun him in circles, swaddled him against his will, and then so before they started to swaddle him, they did a urinalysis. The way everybody knows how a pee test is done on a boy. So they did the whole catheter thing. It was excruciating for my son. That completely traumatized him in itself. And then, like I had previously told you, she started maliciously swaddling him after the fact that she had traumatized him with this urinalysis test, which, by the way, they were incredibly rough. And I also want to add the fact that I thought it was incredibly unprofessional that they dropped not only the catheter, but I believe the IV that they were going to use that night on my son on the floor, and they still went ahead and used it. With that being said, after they swaddled him, after they traumatized him, right, they began to do the IV. They utilized his left arm. Well, it turns out this stupid Maria didn't know how to properly do an IV. She ended up poking my son in the arm 4 times. And I could see the agony on his face. This drove me to tears. I was unconsolable. I was extremely angry. And then finally, on the 4th time, the dumb cunt got it. And both her and the Middle Eastern lady, nurse, took off out of the room. We had some peace for a couple minutes. We were trying to relax my son because he was in such a tremendous amount of distress due to the trauma that Maria and her assistant nurse had caused Ezekiel during his stay at UMC Medical Center. And basically, at the end of everything showed up normal. The only thing that was abnormal was this fever. And basically, the stupid x-ray, the urinalysis, which was medically unnecessary, by the way, and I wish I had known my power that I have today versus back when I had him, because had I known I could decline these exams then, I would have said, F you, F that, and F that. I wouldn't have had him gone through all of that. And so, long story short, after the urinalysis, the malicious swaddling him, she began to elbow him in his chin about 5 different times. Well, by the time that happened, I lost my cool. I went from being in tears and desperate to being fierce like a damn fireball. And my oldest, I kid you guys not, I don't know what my oldest daughter saw in me that night, that she knew she had it to grab me because I was going to do some serious bad stuff. She must have known intuitively that I was getting ready to assault them. And I'm like, no, bitch, you're not going to treat my child like that. And so then, of course, I got pissed off after I, witnessed her elbowing my son unnecessarily in his chin. Keep in mind, during that time, he was also teething. This also may have been a factor as to why his fever was this high. Anyways, long story short, they got the fever to go down with some IV medication, and everything else came back normal, which is why I was so pissed off. And to this day, I am still pissed, and I am still going to sue them. I'm just trying to go through the motions of getting over this bullshit pandemic. And I believe me, I have things in the works right now, and I got a couple people who are disposable to help me. And also, so at the end of everything, we took off out of the hospital before I assaulted the nurse. And, the thing about this is that the doctor, he just God, and it's so hard to talk about because it's so freaking upsetting. But, when you witness your child go through something so freaking traumatic, it changes you, and it really pisses you off. It's almost kind of like having this overwhelming sense of your inability to not lose control. So that's basically what I went through, and I was about 10 seconds away from assaulting this nurse. And instead of being stupid and assaulting her, I decided, screw this. I know a lot about medicine, so I'm going to undo his IV. I'm going to undo the tourniquet that they had on his arm, because whether they knew what they were doing or not, they had left a tourniquet on his arm, which that cuts off circulation. And in the first place, for this IV to be fully functionable, you have to have no tourniquet on your arm. And so I took off the tourniquet, and I think at some point I elbowed her, just to kind of show her that I'm not fucking around, that I know what I'm doing, and that I'm not going to be intimidated. And then she has the audacity to come in with, okay, she took out the IV because, I didn't want them talking shit and calling security and this and that. So I let her take out the IV because she knew that I undid the tape and the tourniquet, and I just didn't give a shit. And so, I was going to make sure that my son was okay one way or another. And while I recognize and I'm grateful and blessed that he's alive, obviously, I wasn't going to allow her to continue to treat him this way. Well, and anyway, so I had undone the tape and the tourniquet, and she got the needle out of his arm. Well, before I could do anything, I decided I'm not going to give in to this crap. I'm not going to give Satan the ability. I just stuck by my son's side, made sure that I was there to thoroughly support him. And, I felt like shit, like, what the fuck did I walk us into? Had I known that they were going to do a whole ton of medically unnecessary things, I would have never agreed to any of them. And I wish I had known this, what I know today, so I could have implemented it then. But I didn't, unfortunately. And, the doctor really seemed like he was going along with the corruption, the lies, and buying into one thing. I just never for a moment did I ever feel like the doctor or the nurses were on the side of my son and I, and it was incredibly disturbing. And keep in mind, his two sisters were there the entire time, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the actual fuck? I'm thinking, like, how in the hell are you gonna oh, check this out. And at one point, when they were torturing my son, because there's no other way to call it, they told my daughters, both Emma and Isabella, they said, "It's okay, girls, turn around, don't watch." And I sarcastically say this because they had a disgusting intonation in their voice. You should have seen the facial expression on these women's faces. And by the way, Maria, I'm still coming after you. And, gosh, I mean, just to see them conspire like that with each other was so disturbing. And then, of course, being the damn asshole that I am, I'm like, I'm not going to let them get away with the maltreatment of my son. I already knew that when you contact the medical board of a hospital, that causes some serious ramifications. And so I basically, I knew that in advance, and I said, what, they're not going to get away with this at all. And so I called the medical board of UMC Health Center, and I gave them a piece of my damn mind, really. And ultimately, it would result in them. I let them know that I was going to file a lawsuit against them for the unnecessary medical treatment of my son, and the unnecessary trauma of my son. And I'm not gonna let them get away with it. I'm not gonna, because I don't know. Here's the deal, guys. This was back in 2017. I really believe that Maria is still an employee there at UMC Medical Center. I don't doubt it. And how many more victims does she have? Because that's essentially what it is. She victimized my son via medical treatment. And I would even say medical malpractice, really, because when you traumatize a patient so far and so bad to a point that they are scared for their own lives, it's not okay. It's absolutely full-heartedly unacceptable. I will not let that disgraceful excuse of a nurse get away with the trauma that she put my son through. And shame on the serving doctor of that night for even simply allowing them to do that. And I think even at one point I brought it up. Do you remember if I brought it up to the doctor's attention or not? Of what? The way that Maria was treating Ezekiel? I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, you know what, she's being really messed up to him. I said, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to get my son and I'm going to go to a different, hospital because I don't need this crap. And he says, he assured me that he was going to speak to her and that she was going to be subtly in this beautiful mood and come and save my son's life. Keep in mind, my son's fever was 101.7, and at that point, you're literally on the verge of fucking brain damage, okay? They would have had a serious, and I'm talking about a serious, worse lawsuit on their hands had my son gotten brain damage and had worse consequences to what he was experiencing. We could have virtually lost my son and their brother. I would have made hell break loose up in that hospital like nobody could imagine. But I'm doing this vlog despite of my bullshit asthma. Wait, what?
Can I also tell them what happened at the end?
Cool, they can see you. Me zoom. Oh man, it won't let me zoom. Stand in light.
So when we were packing up to leave, this one nurse comes inside and she was very nice and she gave Ezekiel and me and my sister a popsicle.
That is it?
And she was very nice, and the other ones were just so rude and not just being nice.
You know what? And let me zoom back out if that's the issue here. And I totally understand that they have a lot of clients. They are on a revolving clock. I understand all that. But there's a time and a place to have tantrums and I guess malfeasance to some extent. And there is a time and a place to do your job. She deliberately took her anger out on my son, traumatizing my son. It took Emma, the one that you just spoke to back here. Say hi. It took us 9.5+ months to emotionally, psychologically restabilize Ezekiel because of the trauma that he suffered at UMC Medical Center. Yes, I am blasting them, and this lawsuit is definitely going to happen. I haven't forgotten. Oh, baby, when you're a part of Anonymous, you don't forget nothing. And so I will get my son justice one freaking way or another. You bet yourself. And by the way, Maria, if this reaches UMC, I hope you guys take it like a damn grain of salt. You guys are doing an awful freaking job. And I am not talking about the doctors and the nurses who are legitimately compassionate and absolutely amazing and loving. For those who are at UMC Medical Center who do things with love and compassion, this video is not about you. It is about Maria, the nurse, who deliberately did malpractice with my son Ezekiel. Okay? I am still planning to sue you guys. The fact that this pandemic is here, you guys think that I forgot. I haven't. And I do intend to punish you guys in the court of law. Unfortunately for you guys, I have quite a bit of connections. so I can't say the best of things for you guys. But here's what I will say. After the trauma that my son suffered, it woke me up to something much more darker than what you guys are doing daily over there. Spiritually, you guys destroyed my son. I don't fucking appreciate that shit at all. You literally made my son scared for his life. That is unacceptable. I don't see how you guys can even possibly even be considered for number one in America, because the reality is you're zero. And I am going to make sure this hits every media platform that there is. And you know what, UMC? Shame on you and your medical board for not doing more for my son. But you know what? When I get my attorney, I'm going to make you guys wish you had done more than a little Mickey Mouse popsicle like you guys gave him that night. I'm going to make you wish you had done more. And I am being so serious right now. And Maria, you're lucky I was able to compose my anger, because it had it not been for my daughter and that, things would have gotten heated. And probably would have gone south, really. I mean, I would have probably brought it down to the doctor and to you and the other lady who was there and whomever else was at that lousy excuse of a desk where you guys sit at. I would have probably given you all a piece of my mind. Probably to the point that you guys are scared. I don't know. But here's what I do know. And here's what's going to happen. I'm calling out UMC Medical Center because they are not the hospital that they are portraying themselves to be. They traumatize children who are 18 months and younger. Listen to me. I understand that when you are that sick, you have to do some things, unfortunately, that are medically necessary. That urinalysis that you gave Ezekiel and that x-ray, those two exams were not medically necessary and solely for that doctor's ability to profit off of my son. And that is unacceptable. The way you conducted yourself, Maria, was trash. Shame on you. Not just as a woman, but as a nurse. And I don't doubt that you're a mom, and God, I feel bad for your kids, if you have any. Seriously, shame on you. What you put my son through, that medical malpractice that you did on him, unacceptable. And I am going to make sure your boss, their boss, and everybody's bosses finds out about this. I am going to make sure that this hits the media. And I have not forgotten. And neither has his sisters. And we will not forgive you. We will not let it go. And Ezekiel will get justice. Let this be a crude awakening that this pandemic doesn't deserve as a distraction. It's just bringing what you deserve faster. Now, let's talk about this pandemic, now that we got that out of the way. So, I have a friend who's a local attorney in Vegas, who's, for some reason, was at UMC the other day, like about a week ago. He saw trucks that are like freezers in the back of UMC for dead bodies. If they had so much room in the morgue, what would be the need for those, frozen trucks? Wake up, America. They have an agenda, and it's to get rid of you. Agenda 2021 and 2030 are very real, and they are happening before your eyes without you even internalizing it. Wake up. You must get prepared, your family, with food and other goods that you will need once the US dollar collapses. You will need to know how to survive. You will need to protect your children from these demonic politicians and DHS, CPS, whatever the hell you want to call them. They all are in on it. And I could say a whole bunch more, but I won't, because that's for a separate vlog. But what I will say is that UMC Medical Center is a disgrace to Las Vegas. President Trump, you shouldn't put them in the spotlight. You should be shaming them as well. Why would you even give them ventilators? You should have given those ventilators to Centennial Hills Hospital, Southern Hills Hospital, Mountain View, Summerlin, and St. Rose Dominican. Those places are worthy of the help, but UMC? Nope. And I don't take anything that I said back. President Trump, you should take those ventilators and give them to the other hospitals. I am being so serious right now. Simply for the fact that these are medical students. These are people who have no clue what they're really doing. The few doctors and nurses that do know, they're bad seeds. There are very few people at UMC Hospital who are actually loving and caring and who do what they're called to do. I am calling them out. I am so fed up with it. And please do me a favor, don't call them number one nationally in America, because they should not be seen as such. Not after what they put my child through, not after what she's probably put a couple others through. And she's still working at UMC. It's disgusting. And all they had to offer was an apology? Oh no. Ezekiel deserves compensation, and I'm talking big time compensation. And I'm going to see to it that he gets that. So Maria, if you think this little pandemic has got you with a clean slate, I hate to break it, honey. I'm just getting started. Goodbye.